Well, hello, my name's Patricia Worby from Alchemy Therapies, and I'm here to talk a little bit more about aspects of what I've learned over the last 25 years with regard to the mind and body. Um, I went through my own healing journey and I discovered an awful lot that wasn't taught to me either at school or university, even though I went through a university grade education in biochemistry and physiology. Most of this stuff that I've learned since, I was never taught. And in my first video, which I recorded last week, which I'll include in the description, we covered the gut brain, why the gut is more than a digestive system. It's actually a source of neural or nervous information that comes from the nervous system up the vagus nerve to the brain. And who knew that the gut had a nervous system of its own and that it's the site of your innate immunity? And that's what I was talking about in the first video. What I'd like to come on to today is a little bit more about this two-way street, if you like, this information highway that comes from your back brain to your internal organs via your vagus nerve. That's probably one of the main ways that the information about your body state is conveyed to your brain. And it's 85% up and 15% down, which really contradicts what I was taught and probably what you were taught, which is that the brain is the control center of the body and it dictates everything that happens. It's actually the other way around. The body is telling the brain and creating the different behaviors that kind of enable you to function. And so if there's something wrong with your gut, if due to the kind of diets we eat in the Western world, which are nutritionally deficient, they're over reliant on sugars, particularly carbs are just overwhelming. We tend to reduce fat because we're told that a fat is bad, when in fact our brain particularly functions better on fat than it does on carbohydrate. And so we're seeing a huge amount of disease, basically, particularly looking at heart disease, uh, any form of dementia, which is also a brain problem where you've just got too many carbs being metabolized, uh, all sorts of arthritis, asthma, eczema. These are all inflammatory diseases. In fact, it was recently, there were, loads of papers on this, that inflammation was at the heart of every disease. And why are we inflamed? Why? When our bodies are designed to live in harmony with the world. Well, we've changed the world. We've changed what we eat. We've changed how we function, how we interact with our world, so that largely we're divorced from natural processes. We don't drink natural water. We don't walk on the earth anymore without, plastic in between, because most shoes are now plastic. There's no grounding that we receive from the earth, which, believe it or not, is really important. So we're living devoid lives and we're eating nutritionally deficient and degraded foods, and we're highly addicted to them. Sugars are very, very addictive. And so it's no wonder then that our gut is largely dysregulated and inflamed. And the microflora that live within our guts, that in fact give us a lot of our information, they create a lot of our neurotransmitters for our brain to function, are out of balance, something we call dysbiosis. Dysbiosis is the imbalance of your gut flora. Because the foods we eat, this is really fascinating, the foods we eat are largely dictated by the kinds of microbes that live in our gut, because they secrete chemicals that kind of increase the craving for the foods they need. So people with sugar cravings, and I'll admit to chocolate sometimes, pretty much every day, a chocolate craving, because some of the microbes are feeding my brain the information that that's what they need, when in fact I'm probably magnesium deficient. There's lots of magnesium in chocolate. So there is a intelligence to this, but the problem is we're out of touch with our bodies, with what we're feeling. All we feel sometimes is this sense of something not quite right. I do believe anxiety is hugely driven by a dysbiotic gut, because some of these peptides, small proteins that the microbes secrete, go directly to your brain. The blood-brain barrier, which we used to think was an impermeable barrier, actually does allow certain proteins to go through, and it's going to change the way you feel. It's going to make you feel highly dysregulated. Your nervous system will be all kind of jumpy, and that's really what we think of as anxiety. And new terms like generalized anxiety disorder, anxiety that doesn't relate to the circumstances of your life. Well, is this a new disease? Is it a reclassification of how people have always felt? No, I think this is a modern problem because of the diets we're eating and our disconnection from life purpose, from being one with nature, having a sense of connection, I think, which is really vital. And so any form of imbalance is going to affect the way you feel. That's the really important piece of information. So we call this Psycho-Neuro-Immunology, or PNI. And in my book, The Scar That Won't Heal, I showed this and I described it in great detail. Now, PNI was a relatively unheard of term 20 years ago. There were a few researchers looking at this connection. Psycho, what's going on in your mind, neuro, what's going on in your nervous system, and immunology, obviously, in the immune system. And that these three things interact. And in fact, the microbiome is in there too, so it could be even extended. But these things are talking to each other, and it's a constant communication. And so we have to really pay attention to how we think, how we feel, and what we're doing, and try and harmonize our lives with what our body is telling us is right for us. And that's different for everyone. We are getting incredibly disharmonic signals now from what we're eating, from how we're supposed to live, in competition with each other, in metal boxes or brick boxes. Doesn't matter. We don't tend to work in the outdoors anymore, or very few people do. So we're not getting the benefit of sunlight. We're not getting the benefit of grounding. And is it any wonder many of us are living lives of high anxiety and high stress? And PNI was really revolutionary because it said high stress affects our physiological functioning, affects the way our immune system functions. And I should know that this week because I got a cold sore out of nowhere, just came up within 2 hours. I've had them before. They're usually my signal that I'm stressed in some way, or I'm tired and I need to slow down. And so I'm booking a holiday. It's like, that's a really good sign that I need to listen to, little things like that. So the stress response, which we used to think was just the same in everybody, we're now learning it's a very vital response, by the way, because it teaches you to activate yourself if you need to run or fight something that's a danger to you, the fight and flight response. But there's another aspect to it, which we're just learning, which is more a sort of shutdown and a slowing of responses. And that's more common in women, actually. Some people have called it tend and befriend, or the fawn response. But we're seeing that gender difference does operate in this field, and that most of the studies on stress have been on men. And so women are physiologically different, but they're also, their brain chemistry is quite different, and the way that the brain operates is quite different. Maybe I'll talk about that next time. But we need to know that we're not all the same, and that we need to tune in to what our needs are as individuals, but also pay attention to what your body is telling you without fear. You don't need fear in this. You need to listen in. So I guess the summary of what I'm saying today is that the mind and body are connected. They are one thing, actually, in this duality that we've grown up with, that the mind is sort of separate, or the brain is separate somehow, is actually inaccurate, and that the gut hugely influences how you feel and how your brain operates. And if you have inflammation in your brain, It's going to cause cognitive difficulties. Further on down the line, it's going to reduce your immune functioning in your brain. And there are immune cells in your brain called microglia, and they are there to kind of help the neurons function. And so, you know, we think dementia is probably a failure of the immune system to function well due to this overwhelming toxicity of the brain, and you know, a lifetime perhaps of toxic food, toxic thoughts. You know, stress plays a huge role in creating inflammation. So we owe it to ourselves to understand this and to pay attention and to look after ourselves and find out what's stressing us as individuals, and learning to heal that with other people. You know, getting help. Basically, it's very difficult to do on your own because you can't see how you're operating on your own because you're so used to it. You're so habitual. You need the insight of somebody who's outside of your frame of reference, if you like. So getting help is absolutely vital, and kind of paying attention to your body's signals too. So I hope that was helpful, and I'll see you next time. Do subscribe, take care of yourselves, and talk to you soon. Bye-bye.